If you happen to live in regions of the world where Halloween is celebrated, you likely remember your mum sorting through your Halloween candy as a kid looking for signs of tainted candy laced with poison, needles, or razor blades. It turns out, unless she was just using it as an excuse to steal the good candy before you got it, she was wasting her time. You're more likely to get attacked by a samurai sword-wielding bear while trying to trick or treat than be poisoned by a stranger. Further, it's more likely that your Halloween candy will be poisoned or otherwise tampered with by one of your parents or family members than a stranger. Think about that while your mum is checking out your candy before letting you eat it. So, well, why all the worry? Well, that's because the news media needs something to talk about, and there's nothing better for ratings than saying something like, "Is your child's Halloween candy poisoned? Find out the deadly truth at 11. For example, one famed, widely publicized Halloween poisoning occurred on the 8th of October 1988. None other than the New York Times reported that strychnine was found on sun-kissed fun-fruit dinosaurs in New Jersey. Upon investigation, it turned out the strychnine was cornstarch. Further, while many children die directly after Halloween from non-candy related things, after all, people die every day because we are nothing but fragile meat and water sacks, if there isn't an apparent cause the week following Halloween, many a sensationalized story gets widely publicized, with poisoned Halloween candy generally being blamed. There are numerous instances of this happening. Now, this isn't all bad in theory. I mean, if there is even a chance that some child's death was poison candy related, the police rightly encourage the news media to tell parents in the area to get rid of their children's Halloween candy because it might be poisoned. When it turns out the death had nothing to do with Halloween candy, most media outlets tend to have moved on from Halloween stories, who either don't report a retraction or don't make it the headline, like when they claimed the death was from candy. Thus, the perception that poisoned Halloween candy is a rampant problem embeds itself in the popular psyche, going all the way back to at least 1970, when the New York Times reported, quote, "Halloween goodies that children collect this weekend may bring them more horror than happiness." Sorry, let me reread that. "Halloween candies that children collect this weekend may bring them more horror than happiness." It's ridiculous. Which proceeded to tell parents all about how the candy could potentially be tampered with, even though there has never been an instance of this actually happening at the time. So, what about more recently? Well, according to the author of Halloween Sadism, The Evidence, professor of sociology Joel Best from the University of Delaware, who's been studying this since 1985, hasn't been able to find one single instance of a child dying as a result of candy given to them by a stranger on Halloween. Now, certainly such reports pop up every now and again. Since 1958, he's found about 78 such instances, including being connected to 5 deaths, but they were all debunked once the matter was investigated by police in each case, and most of them were just simple hoaxes. For instance, one child, Best says, brought a half-eaten candy bar to his parents and said, "I think there's ant poison on this." They had it checked, and sure enough, there was ant poison on it. Of course, the youngster had applied the poison himself. So if you're paying close attention, you perhaps notice, we said, dying as a result of candy given to them by a stranger. It has happened once before that someone poisoned candy and gave it out to children, with one dying. In 1974, 8-year-old Timothy O'Brien of Texas died after eating a pixie sticks laced with cyanide after trick-or-treating. So, clearly trick-or-treating is unsafe now, right? He trick-or-treated, then he died from the poison someone gave him, case closed. Except it wasn't candy a stranger gave him. O'Brien's dad, Ronald, was trying to kill his kids, so put cyanide-laced candy in their bags. The senior O'Brien was about $100,000 in debt and close to having his car repoed. His solution? Suddenly take out about $60,000 worth of life insurance policies on his 2 children, then give them both the poison candy to try and collect on the policies. What could go wrong? Nothing suspicious there! Needless to say, the police had him as a prime suspect as soon as they learned these details. After the investigation and trial, the dad was convicted for murdering his son. His daughter survived the ordeal thanks to the fact that she simply didn't eat hers. Timothy wasn't so lucky, as Ronald made sure he ate the tainted candy just before tucking him into bed. Now, this wasn't quite the end of it. In order to divert suspicion from himself, O'Brien had slipped the poisoned candy in a few other children's Halloween bags without them knowing. It's thought that 4 others received the poisoned pixie sticks, presumably hoping that if several children died, it wouldn't look nearly as fishy. Ronald is a massive piece of shit. Like his daughter, the other children also didn't eat their pixie sticks. Upon investigation, none of the kids could remember any place they went giving out pixie sticks, but did have contact with O'Brien, so the evidence further pointed to him being the poisoner. Needless to say, being a resident of Texas, where the state policy for any and all crimes essentially kill him and let God sort him out, despite the fact that the evidence against him was circumstantial, though very compelling, O'Brien was executed a decade later via lethal injection. The poisoner was poisoned. Yes! Before that, in 1970, there was a case of a family that tampered with candy in a jar after a child died to cover for a family member. The 5-year-old in question was a Detroit boy who ate a large amount of heroin his uncle had hidden. The boy died 4 days later. The media at the time, of course, reported it was a case of Halloween candy poisoning. In the media's defense, in an attempt to divert attention away from the uncle, the family had sprinkled some heroin on some of the child's Halloween candy and claimed that that's how the boy wound up ingesting the drug. Upon investigation, the truth came out. As far as other illegal substances go, in 2000, kids in San Francisco neighborhood got a trick mixed in with their treats when they found Snickers candy bar wrappers stuffed with marijuana. Needless to say, depending on their age, I'm guessing some of the kids weren't that upset about it. Oh no! So much weed! But was this intentional? Well, police traced the pot to a homeowner who was confounded by the accusations. It turns out that the man worked in the dead letter office at a local postal facility, and when he found a bag of Snickers in a lost package, he brought them home to give out as treats. He hadn't realized that someone had gone to a lot of trouble to put pot in the package and reseal them in order to make an attempt at smuggling pot through the mail. So as far as the actual non-hoax instances of poison candy given out on Halloween go, that mostly sums it up. We have one instance of someone actually doing this, though mostly just trying to kill his own kids. One accidental giveaway of some pot, and one kid who simply ate a stash of his uncle's heroin. Alright, so that's poisoning. What about razors? What about needles? There are verified reports of such objects being placed in random trick-or-treaters' candy, although these incidents are exceptionally rare, under 100, even including the hoaxes and pranks. The first known instance of someone giving out inedible and possibly dangerous items to trick-or-treaters happened in 1964. A Long Island woman, Helen Farl, gave out steel wool, dog biscuits, and ant traps to children she believed were too old to be trick-or-treating. Nobody was injured, and Farl had specifically told the kids not to eat the items and labeled them all with poison. Nevertheless, she was prosecuted and pled guilty to endangering children. Beyond that, in nearly all of these cases, the sharp objects were found to have been placed in the food item by a relative or friend, usually as a prank. From the poisoning in this, it would appear kids should be fearing what their families and friends are doing to their candy more than strangers on Halloween. In fact, despite the fact that this has been reported as a widespread problem since the late 1960s, the first known confirmed case of a person intentionally giving out candy with sharp objects embedded to random children didn't happen until the year 2000. 49-year-old James Joseph Smith dug stick needles into Snickers candy bars as a prank and gave them out to kids. While several children bit into the candy, the only injury was to a teenager who was pricked by one of the needles, but did not require medical attention. Smith was charged with adulterating a substance with intent to cause death, harm, or illness. In another non-family related poking, in 2008, candy from a Florida dollar store was found to have metal shavings and metal blades embedded in it. An investigation revealed that the candy, Pokemon Valentine's Day lollipops, was manufactured in China, and the foreign objects were believed to have gotten into the candy at the factory accidentally. So while the instances of both the poisoning and embedded needles are not zero, they are virtually zero when you consider the many millions of kids that have trick-or-treated since the early 20th century. And if you want to include guising and souling, we can go back several hundred more years without a confirmed case of poisoning or stranger-related embedding of sharp objects in the given food item. So, well, faith in humanity restored. You're welcome. Even though there was a guy who murdered his son in this episode. In the end, there has only been one death as a result of either of these things, and a stranger wasn't involved. On the flip side, statistically and not surprisingly, children are 4 times more likely to be struck by a car on Halloween than any other day of the year. Yet another instance where we humans tend to obsessively worry about extremely unlikely things while conveniently ignoring the fact that for most of us, the most dangerous thing we do in our lives, we do just about every day without worrying about it at all. Ride in automobiles or on bikes and cross or walk across streets on foot. Yet more conclusive proof that humans are indeed pretty stupid.